Jake Morrison had never been good at keeping his thoughts to himself. His mother used to say he wore his heart on his sleeve, which seemed like a terrible idea for someone who had just been assigned to his first real diplomatic mission. But here he was, 26 years old and standing in the docking bay of the Meridian Exchange Station, trying not to look as nervous as he felt. "Remember the briefing materials, Morrison," Commander Lisa Grant said as she walked beside him through the gleaming corridors. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. The Zirathi are insectoid in appearance, but their cognitive and emotional complexity rivals our own. Possibly exceeds it in some ways. Jake nodded, clutching his datapad a little too tightly. He had read the briefing materials 3 times on the journey here. The Zirathi Empire controlled 7 star systems rich in rare minerals that humanity desperately needed. This diplomatic exchange was supposed to establish trade agreements and cultural understanding. No pressure at all. Their carapaces change color based on emotional state, Lisa continued. But here's the critical part. You do not, under any circumstances, comment on their physical appearance. There, such observations are considered extremely intimate, reserved for family bonds and potential mates only. Got it, Jake said quickly. No comments about how they look. Stick to neutral topics. Exactly. We cannot afford mistakes here, Morrison. Earth needs this alliance. They reached the main diplomatic hall where the first informal meeting would take place. Jake had expected something grand and intimidating, but the room was surprisingly comfortable. Large windows showed the curve of the planet below, a world neither human nor Zirathi, but chosen as neutral ground. Soft lighting and carefully placed furniture suggested someone had tried very hard to make the space welcoming to multiple species. The Zirathi delegation arrived this morning, Lisa said. You will meet Elder Craval shortly. He is their lead negotiator. Very traditional, very proper. Follow his lead in all things. Jake spent the next hour in meetings that blurred together in his mind. Handshakes with human staff members, polite nods to Zirathi officials whose faces he could not quite read. Their bodies were covered in segmented carapaces that did indeed shift in color, like oil on water. Beautiful, really, in an alien way. Jake kept that thought firmly to himself. By late afternoon, his brain felt stuffed with protocols and proper forms of address. Lisa finally released him to get settled in his quarters and rest before the formal dinner that evening. Jake grabbed his bag and decided to take the long route, wanting to explore the station a bit. He found himself in an observation deck on the outer ring. The room was empty and quiet, with floor-to-ceiling windows that showed the stars in all directions. Jake stood there for a long moment, just breathing. Space stretched out forever, full of civilizations and worlds humans were only beginning to meet. It was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. The view causes chest tightness in your species as well. Jake jumped and turned. A Zirathi stood near the far window, and he had been so lost in thought that he had not heard her approach. She was smaller than the officials he had met earlier, her carapace a deep blue color that reminded him of Earth's oceans. Sorry, I did not mean to startle you, she said in careful English. Her voice had a musical quality, like wind chimes. I am Velenix, Junior Cultural Attaché. Jake Morrison, he managed. Junior diplomat, and yes, the view is kind of overwhelming. She moved closer to the window, and Jake noticed the way the station's lights caught on her carapace. It was not just blue, he realized. There were hints of green and purple and silver, all shifting gently as she moved. The colors flowed like water. Your people have a word? Velenix said slowly. Awesome. Yes, this view is awesome.
Jake smiled. That is exactly right.
You speak English really well. I study your language for 2 years now, but speaking is different from reading. Her carapace flickered with what might have been embarrassment. I make many mistakes still. No, you are doing great, Jake assured her. They stood together in comfortable silence for a moment, watching a small cargo ship pass in the distance. The planet below rotated slowly, showing its night side scattered with lights. Your world has oceans, Velenix said softly. Vast waters covering much of the surface. We have read this causes unique perspectives on existence. Always the horizon, always something beyond sight. I grew up near the coast, Jake said. Used to watch the waves for hours. My dad said I was wasting time, but I never felt like I was wasting anything. This is not waste. This is contemplation. This is seeing the infinite in the finite moment. Her carapace shimmered, colors rippling across the surface in complex patterns. Jake turned to look at her properly, struck by the thoughtfulness in her words. The light from the planet below caught her carapace at a new angle, and the colors seemed to glow from within. Blues deepened into purples, silvers brightened into something like pearl. It was mesmerizing, like watching the aurora borealis he had seen once on a trip to Alaska. "That is beautiful," he said quietly, almost to himself. The moment the words left his mouth, he remembered the briefing. Do not comment on their appearance. His stomach dropped as he realized what he had just said. Velenix went completely still. Her carapace flooded with a deep violet color, spreading from her core outward until every segment glowed with the same rich purple. It was like watching her blush, if blushing could happen across an entire body. "You said," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "you said beautiful." "About me?" Jake felt his face getting hot. "I'm so sorry. I forgot the protocol and I should not have—" "Please," she interrupted him, taking a small step closer. Her carapace was still that intense violet, and he could see her breathing had changed, faster and shallower. "Say again those words." "Please." He stared at her, completely lost. Every instinct told him to apologize again, to back away, to run and find Lisa and beg forgiveness for ruining everything on his first day, but something in Velenix's voice stopped him. She did not sound offended. She sounded almost hopeful. "I said you are beautiful," Jake repeated slowly. "The way your carapace catches the light, the colors. It is beautiful." The violet deepened even further, and he saw her mandibles make a small movement that might have been a smile. She opened her mouth to respond, but footsteps echoed from the corridor outside. "Velenix? Are you in here?" Another Zirathi voice called out. She stepped back quickly, her carapace shifting to a more neutral blue-green. "I must go," she said hurriedly. "But Jake Morrison, I will remember your words." She moved past him toward the door, her shoulder brushing his arm for just a second. Then she was gone, leaving Jake alone with the stars and the uncomfortable certainty that he had just made his first major diplomatic mistake. The question was whether it would be his last. Jake barely slept that night. He kept replaying the encounter in the observation deck, trying to figure out if he had just destroyed his career before it even started. By the time morning came, he had convinced himself that he needed to confess everything to Commander Grant before the situation got worse. He found Lisa in her office reviewing documents for the day's negotiations. She looked up when he knocked, and her expression immediately shifted to concern. "Morrison, you look terrible." "What happened?" Jake closed the door behind him and sat down heavily in the chair across from her desk. "I made a mistake yesterday. A big one." Lisa set down her datapad and gave him her full attention. "Tell me everything." He explained the encounter with Velenix, the casual conversation, and the moment his mouth had gotten ahead of his brain. Lisa's expression remained carefully neutral throughout, which somehow made it worse. "And her reaction?" Lisa asked when he finished. "She blushed. At least, I think that is what the color change meant. Turned this deep violet color all over. Then she asked me to repeat what I said." Jake ran his hand through his hair. "I should have apologized and left immediately, but I was so confused by her response that I said it again." To his surprise, Lisa did not look angry. Instead, she leaned back in her chair with a thoughtful expression. "Interesting. I thought I'd just committed a massive cultural violation." "You did," Lisa confirmed. "But the fact that she responded positively rather than with offense is significant. Let me do some research. In the meantime, act normally during today's sessions. If the Zirathi delegation was truly offended, we would have heard about it by now." The morning negotiations took place in a conference room designed to accommodate both species comfortably. Jake sat behind Lisa and two other senior diplomats, trying to focus on the discussion about mineral extraction rights. But his eyes kept drifting to the Zirathi side of the table. Elder Crevel led their delegation, his carapace a stern gray color that rarely shifted. Beside him sat two other officials, whose names Jake had already forgotten. And at the far end, almost hidden behind the others, sat Velenix. She was not looking at the speakers. She was looking directly at Jake. When their eyes met, her carapace flickered through several colors in quick succession. Blue to green to that same violet from yesterday, then back to blue again. Jake felt his heart rate pick up. He gave her a tiny nod, not sure what else to do. Her mandibles moved in what he was starting to recognize as a smile. Junior Diplomat Morrison, Elder Creval's voice cut through his thoughts. "Do you have opinion on this matter?" Jake's mind went blank. He had not been paying attention at all. "I apologize, Elder." "Could you repeat the question?" Lisa shot him a warning look that promised they would be having words later. The rest of the morning passed in agonizing slowness. When they finally broke for lunch, Jake headed straight for the station's cafeteria. He was halfway through a mediocre sandwich when someone slid into the seat across from him. Velenik set down a tray containing something that looked like crystallized amber in liquid form. "May I join you?" "Of course," Jake said, very aware that several other diplomats had noticed them sitting together. "How are the negotiations going from your perspective?" "They are tedious but necessary," she said. "Elder Crevol believes in thoroughness. Every detail must be examined from all angles." She paused, stirring her amber substance with a long utensil. "I wanted to thank you for yesterday." "Thank me? I thought I insulted you." Her carapace shifted to a soft pink color. "No. Among my people, commenting on appearance is intimate, yes. But it is not insult. It is expression of deep feeling. When you said those words, you honored me greatly." Jake felt like the ground had shifted under him. "I did not know. I just spoke without thinking." "This makes it more meaningful," Velenik said softly. "Calculated words are political. Spontaneous words are true." She looked at him with large, multifaceted eyes. "Your people express emotions easily with words. Mine express through color and movement, but words of emotion are difficult for us. This is why your words touched me so deeply." "I am glad I did not offend you," Jake said, "but I should probably be more careful. Commander Grant would not be happy if she knew I was making personal connections during diplomatic negotiations. Is wrong to make connections?" Velenix tilted her head. "How can we build alliance between peoples if individuals do not first build understanding?" It was a good question, one that Jake did not have a ready answer for. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, and he found himself relaxing. Velenix asked him about Earth, about oceans and forests and things she had only seen in pictures. He asked her about the Zirathi homeworld, about cities built in massive trees and singing ceremonies under their 3 moons. "You are unusual among your people," Jake observed. "The way you talk about other species. You seem genuinely interested." Her carapace flickered with colors he could not quite interpret. "I am considered strange, yes. Most Zirathi are content with our own culture, our own worlds. They see other species as curiosities, not as equals worthy of deep understanding." She looked down at her food. "My family worries about me. They say I should focus on traditional studies, on finding proper bonding partner among our own kind." "Bonding partner?" Jake asked. "What you would call marriage," Velenix explained. "Among Zirathi, such bonds are usually arranged by families, based on compatible genetics and social standing. Romance as your people understand it is rare." Something uncomfortable twisted in Jake's chest at that information, though he was not sure why. "That sounds kind of lonely." "It is practical," Velenix said, but her carapace had shifted to a muted gray. "Emotion is expressed through color and harmony song, not through choice of partner. But I have always wondered about other ways. Your human stories of love, of choosing based on connection rather than logic. It seems frightening, but also beautiful." Before Jake could respond, Lisa appeared beside their table. Her expression was carefully neutral, but he recognized the tension around her eyes. "Morrison, I need you for a moment." "Excuse us, Attaché Velenix." Jake followed Lisa out into the corridor, his stomach sinking. She led him to an empty conference room and closed the door. "I did that research," Lisa said without preamble. "Commenting on a Zirathi's appearance, the way you did, is equivalent to a courtship declaration. You essentially told her you find her attractive and are interested in pursuing a relationship." "What?" Jake's voice came out higher than intended. "But I just said she was beautiful." "It was an observation, not a declaration of anything." "To them it is the same thing," Lisa said. "And, based on her reaction and the fact that she is now seeking you out publicly, she has accepted your declaration. Jake, do you understand what this means?" "You have entered into what her people would consider the beginning of a formal courtship." Jake sat down hard in the nearest chair. "This is a disaster." "Actually," Lisa said slowly, "it might be an opportunity. I spoke with Elder Crevol this morning. He is aware of the situation, and while he is concerned, he is also intrigued. He says Velenix has never shown interest in bonding with anyone, human or Zirathi. He asked me about your intentions." "My intentions? I do not have intentions." "I just made a mistake." "Did you?" Lisa asked quietly. "Because from where I stood in that cafeteria, you looked very comfortable with her, and she was displaying colors I am told indicate genuine happiness." Jake put his head in his hands. What am I supposed to do? That depends, Lisa said. Do you want to pursue this, or do you want me to help you extricate yourself gracefully? Either way, we need to decide quickly. The Xyrathi take these matters very seriously. Jake spent the rest of the day thinking about Lisa's question. Did he want to pursue this? The logical answer was no. He was here for diplomacy, not personal relationships. Getting involved with a Xyrathi official during sensitive negotiations seemed like the worst possible idea. But every time he tried to convince himself to end things gracefully, he remembered the way Velenix had looked at the stars, the thoughtfulness in her voice when she talked about infinite moments, the colors rippling across her carapace when she smiled. By evening, he had made his decision. He found Lisa in the diplomatic wing and told her he wanted to continue, but properly. If this was going to happen, he needed to understand Xyrathi culture better. He needed to do this right. Lisa surprised him by smiling. I was hoping you would say that. I have already arranged for you and Velenix to have official cultural exchange sessions. Elder Creval approved it himself. He says if you are going to court one of his people, you should at least learn how to do it properly. The first session took place the next morning in a small room filled with comfortable cushions and soft lighting. Velenix arrived carrying what looked like a musical instrument, something between a harp and a set of wind chimes. You said you wanted to understand my people better, she said, settling onto a cushion across from him. I thought we could start with harmony singing. It is fundamental to how we communicate emotion. She began to play the instrument, and sounds filled the room that Jake could barely hear. They were at the very edge of human hearing range, high-pitched and ethereal. But he could feel them somehow, vibrating in his chest and making his skin tingle. We hear different frequencies than you, Velenix explained. Our language has layers your ears cannot detect, but harmony singing is how we express feelings too complex for color alone. She played again, and this time Jake closed his eyes and just listened. The sound seemed to tell a story without words. Loneliness, curiosity, hope, fear, joy, all woven together in patterns that made his throat tight. That was incredible, he said when she stopped. What were you saying? Her carapace flushed pink. I was singing about meeting you. About how strange and wonderful it feels to be understood by someone so different from myself. Jake felt his face get warm. Not as beautiful as that, but I thought you might like it. He pulled out his datapad and played a recording he had downloaded from Earth's archives. It was ocean waves, recorded on a beach near where he grew up. The sound of water rolling onto sand, over and over, peaceful and constant. Velenix went completely still, listening. Her carapace shifted through blues and greens, colors that reminded Jake of the sea itself. This is what you heard as a child? She asked quietly. Almost every day. My house was just up the hill from the beach. I used to fall asleep to this sound. It is like harmony singing, Velenix said. Patterns within patterns. Never exactly the same, but always familiar. I understand now why you spent hours watching the water. You were listening to the ocean's song. They spent the rest of the morning sharing pieces of their worlds. Jake showed her human art and music, trying to explain why a painting could make someone cry or a song could make them want to dance. Velenix demonstrated the traditional movements her people used in formal ceremonies, her body flowing through positions that looked like a combination of dance and martial arts. Your people are so expressive with your bodies, Jake observed. Every movement has meaning, and your people are expressive with faces, Velenix replied. You have so many tiny muscles around your eyes and mouth. We find it fascinating how much emotion you can show with just small changes in expression. The sessions became a regular part of their schedule. Every morning, Jake and Velenix would meet to share aspects of their cultures, and every morning, Jake found himself looking forward to it more. But not everyone was happy about their growing connection. During one afternoon negotiation session, Jake noticed several Xyrathi officials displaying dark red colors whenever they looked at Velenix. The color reminded him of anger or disapproval. Elder Creval noticed too. After the session ended, he approached Jake directly. Junior Diplomat Morrison, may I speak with you privately? They walked to a quiet corner of the station near one of the garden spaces that had been designed to feel peaceful to multiple species. Elder Creval's carapace was a neutral gray, unreadable. Some of my delegation believe your relationship with Velenix is inappropriate, the elder said bluntly. They think she is being distracted from her duties, that you are taking advantage of her unusual interest in other species. Jake felt anger flash through him. I would never take advantage of her, and she is not being distracted. She completes all her work thoroughly. I have seen her reports. I know this, Craval said, his carapace shifting to a lighter shade. I am not one who disapproves. But you must understand, Velenix is from a prominent family. There are expectations for her future. An arranged bonding has been discussed, though not yet formalized. She told me about arranged bonding, Jake said carefully. It sounds like she is not enthusiastic about the idea.
No, she is not, Craval agreed.
Velenix has always been different. As a child, she collected stories about other worlds while her peers practiced traditional songs. She asked questions that made her teachers uncomfortable. Her family has been patient, but they expect her to eventually accept her responsibilities. And dating a human is not part of those responsibilities. Dating, Craval repeated the word carefully. A human term for exploratory courtship, yes? No, this would not be acceptable to traditionalists in my delegation or in her family. Jake felt his hopes sink. So what happens now? Now, Craval said, you and Velenix must decide how important this connection is. If it is merely curiosity, it would be kinder to end it now, but if it is something deeper, you will need to prove it. To my delegation, to her family, and to all those who doubt that genuine bonds can form across such different species. The elder paused, his carapace shifting through several colors before settling on something almost warm, like amber. I will tell you something, young Morrison. I have been a diplomat for 40 cycles of our homeworld. I have seen countless negotiations, countless attempts to bridge differences between peoples. Most fail because individuals refuse to truly see each other as equals. But I have watched you with Velenix. You listen when she speaks. You ask questions to understand, not to judge. You make her display colors I have rarely seen, colors of genuine joy. She makes me happy too, Jake admitted. I did not expect that. I came here thinking I would just do my job and go home, but knowing her has changed how I see everything. Then my advice is this, Craval said. Continue your cultural exchange. Learn everything you can about our people, and let Velenix learn about yours. Build a foundation of true understanding. Because if this relationship is to have any chance of success, you will need more than attraction. You will need to bridge two worlds. That evening, Jake found Velenix in the observation deck where they had first met. She was standing at the same window looking out at the stars. Elder Craval spoke to you, she said without turning around. It was not a question. Yes. He told me about the opposition to us spending time together. I am sorry, Velenix said softly. I should have warned you this would be complicated. Jake moved to stand beside her. Do you want to stop? The cultural exchange sessions, I mean. If it is causing you problems with your delegation, no. The word came out fierce, and her carapace flashed bright gold. I do not want to stop. For the first time in my life, I feel like someone truly sees me, not as a political tool or a disappointment to tradition, but as myself. I feel the same way, Jake said. But Craval is right. We need to be smart about this. We need to show everyone that what we are building is real and valuable. Velenix turned to face him fully. How do we do that? Jake thought about all the negotiations he had watched over the past weeks, all the careful arguments and presented evidence. We demonstrate it. The trade talks have been stalling because both sides keep misunderstanding each other's intentions. What if we showed them how we have learned to communicate across our differences? Prove that real understanding between our species is possible. You want to use our relationship as an example for the negotiations? Velenix's carapace rippled with colors that suggested both surprise and interest. Not just our relationship, our friendship, our cultural exchange. Everything we have learned about truly listening to each other. Jake felt excitement building as the idea took shape. We could give a presentation. Show both delegations the methods we have used to bridge our differences. Velenix's carapace blazed with gold and silver light. Yes, this could work, and it would show the traditionalists that connections between our peoples have value beyond simple trade agreements. They spent the rest of the evening planning, their heads close together as they outlined their presentation. And for the first time since this whole complicated situation had begun, Jake felt like they might actually have a path forward. The presentation was scheduled for 3 days later, giving Jake and Velenix just enough time to prepare, but not enough time to overthink it. They worked together every evening, putting together examples of their cultural exchange and the methods they had used to overcome misunderstandings. When you first played harmony singing for me, I could barely hear it, Jake said as they reviewed their notes. But you did not give up. You found ways to help me understand through feeling instead of just hearing. And when you tried to explain human humor, I thought you were being confusing on purpose, Velenix added, her carapace rippling with amusement. But you kept giving examples until I understood the pattern. You showed patience I did not expect. The night before the presentation, Jake could not sleep. He kept thinking about everything that could go wrong. What if the delegation saw their relationship as unprofessional? What if they made things worse instead of better? He got up and wandered to the observation deck, hoping the familiar view would calm his nerves. He was not surprised to find Velenix already there, standing at their usual window. Could not sleep either? He asked as he joined her. I am worried, she admitted. Her carapace was a swirl of dark blues and grays. Not about the presentation. About what comes after. Jake, even if we succeed tomorrow, even if both delegations accept that cross-species understanding is valuable, that does not change my situation. Your family, Jake said quietly. Yes. Elder Craval sent a message to my parents informing them of our cultural exchange sessions.
They responded today. Her voice was tight.
They are pleased I am learning diplomacy skills, but they reminded me that I am expected home after these negotiations conclude. There is a bonding ceremony being arranged with a male from a compatible family line. Jake felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. When? Within the next cycle. About 4 of your months. Velenix turned to look at him, and even in the dim light he could see the distress in her colors. They say it is time for me to stop wandering and accept my responsibilities. They say my interest in other species has been indulged long enough. Do you want this bonding? Jake asked, though he was afraid of the answer. I want to choose my own path, Velenix said. I want to explore the galaxy and learn about different peoples. I want to find someone who understands me, who sees the universe the way I do. But among my people, what I want matters less than family duty and tradition. They stood in silence for a long moment. Jake wanted to say something comforting, something that would fix this. But he had learned enough about Zirathi culture to know there were no easy answers. Tell me about him, Jake finally said. The one they want you to bond with. His name is Trevosh. He comes from a family of military leaders. He is respected, accomplished, and completely traditional in his thinking. We have met twice at formal gatherings. He was polite, but showed no interest in actually knowing me. To him, I am simply a suitable genetic match from an appropriate family. That sounds awful. It is practical, Velenix said, echoing the words she had used before. But her carapace was now streaked with dark purple, a color Jake had learned meant deep unhappiness. This is how my people have done things for thousands of years. Who am I to reject tradition because I want something different? You are someone who deserves to be happy, Jake said firmly. You are someone with your own thoughts and dreams. That should matter. Velenix made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sob. You are very human in your thinking, Jake Morrison. Individual happiness over collective harmony. It is one of the things I admire about your people. But it is not how my world works. Jake reached out slowly, giving her time to move away if she wanted. When she did not, he gently took her hand. Her carapace was cool and smooth under his fingers, the texture like polished stone. What if we prove tomorrow that individual connections matter? He said. What if we show both delegations that real understanding between peoples starts with individuals choosing to see each other truly? Maybe that could change some minds about tradition versus choice. You are an optimist, Velenix said, but her carapace was beginning to show hints of warmer colors. It is another thing I admire about you. You see possibilities where I see only walls. They stood together at the window until the station's artificial night cycle began to fade into morning light. Then they went to prepare for the presentation that might change everything. The conference room was full when they arrived. Both delegations sat on opposite sides of the table, just as they had for every negotiation session. But this time Jake and Vela and Nix stood together at the front, a human and a Zirathi side by side. Lisa gave Jake an encouraging nod. Elder Cravel's carapace was a neutral gray, unreadable. The other Zirathi officials showed various shades of red and orange that suggested skepticism or disapproval. Thank you for agreeing to this session, Jake began. For the past few weeks, Attaché Velenix and I have been conducting cultural exchange. We would like to share what we have learned about building bridges between very different peoples. Velenix activated the display screen behind them. It showed a split image. Jake's first day at the station on one side, her own arrival on the other. We came here as strangers, she said in her careful English. Not just to each other, but to each other's entire way of thinking. My people communicate emotion through color and harmony frequencies. Humans use facial expressions and verbal declarations. These are not just different methods. They are different understandings of what communication means. Jake took over. Our first conversations were full of misunderstandings. I spoke too directly, which seemed rude by Zerathi standards. Velenix used color shifts I could not interpret, leaving me confused about her actual meaning. But instead of giving up, we developed strategies. They walked through their methods, using multiple forms of communication to ensure clarity, asking questions without judgment when confused, sharing cultural context before making assumptions, taking time to sit in comfortable silence when words or colors were not enough. The trade negotiations have stalled repeatedly over similar issues, Velenix said. Humans propose solutions that seem aggressive to Zerathi sensibilities. Zerathi request protocols that seem unnecessarily complicated to human thinking, but these are not fundamental incompatibilities. They are communication gaps. Jake pulled up examples from the actual negotiations. Last week, the human delegation suggested a fast-track approval process for mineral surveys. The Zerathi delegation rejected it immediately. But the real issue was not the proposal itself. It was that humans value speed and efficiency, while Zerathi value thoroughness and consideration of long-term impacts. Neither approach is wrong, they just need to be balanced. If we had understood this from the beginning, Velenix added, we could have proposed a process that honors both values. Efficient in structure, but thorough in implementation. They continued for another 20 minutes, showing concrete examples of how their personal exchange had taught them to navigate cultural differences. The room was quiet, both delegations listening intently. When they finished, Elder Krevel was the first to speak. You have demonstrated that individual commitment to understanding can overcome significant barriers. This is valuable. But I must ask, Junior Diplomat Morrison, what are your intentions regarding Velenix beyond these cultural exchanges? The room went completely silent. Jake felt every eye on him. This was the moment. He could give a diplomatic non-answer, keep things professional and safe.
Or he could tell the truth. He looked at Velenix.
Her carapace was shifting rapidly through colors, showing her nervousness. But when their eyes met, she gave him a tiny nod. My intention, Jake said clearly, is to continue learning from her and with her for as long as she will have me, not as a diplomatic project, but as someone I genuinely care about. Someone who has changed how I see the universe and my place in it. Velenix's carapace exploded into brilliant gold and silver light. Several Zerathi officials made sounds of surprise. And you, Velenix? Elder Krevel asked. What are your intentions? The same, she said, her voice steady despite the emotional colors radiating from her body. Jake has shown me that connection based on true understanding is possible. That I do not have to choose between honoring my people and honoring myself. I intend to pursue this relationship while fulfilling my duties to this delegation and to the alliance we are building. Even though your family has other plans for you, asked one of the Zerathi officials, his carapace dark red with disapproval. Especially because of that, Velenix said, I believe my people and humanity can build something meaningful together. But it starts with individuals choosing to truly see each other. I cannot ask my entire species to embrace change if I am not willing to do the same in my own life. The room erupted into discussion. Zerathi officials spoke rapidly in their own language, their carapaces flashing colors too quickly for Jake to follow. The human delegation looked equally surprised, with several diplomats whispering urgently to each other. Lisa stood up, her voice cutting through the noise. I propose we take a short recess to process what we have heard. Both delegations can discuss privately and reconvene in 1 hour. Everyone agreed, and the room cleared quickly. Jake and Velenix were left standing alone at the front. Her carapace had settled into a pale blue color that he had learned meant uncertainty mixed with hope. I cannot believe I just said that in front of everyone, Velenix said quietly. My family will hear about this within hours. Do you regret it? Jake asked. She thought for a moment before answering. No, I am terrified, but I do not regret it. For the first time, I spoke my truth instead of hiding behind what others expect. The hour passed slowly. Jake spent it with the human delegation in a private conference room. Lisa was surprisingly supportive, though she warned him that this was now far beyond a simple diplomatic assignment. If you pursue this, Jake, you need to understand the implications, she said. You might need to travel to the Zerathi homeworld. You might face opposition from her family and her entire culture. This is not going to be easy. I know, Jake said. But walking away would be worse. She matters to me, Lisa. More than I expected anyone to matter when I took this assignment. When they reconvened, the atmosphere in the room had changed. The Zerathi delegation sat together, but Jake noticed Elder Krevel had positioned himself slightly apart from the others, his carapace a thoughtful amber color. "We have discussed your presentation," Cravel began, "and the personal declarations that followed. The delegation is divided in opinion. Some believe you have demonstrated valuable insights into cross-cultural understanding. Others believe you have simply proven that humans do not respect Zerathi traditions regarding bonding and family structure." Jake's heart sank, but the elder held up one hand. "However, I have made a decision as lead negotiator. These trade talks have been stalling because we have been treating them as purely transactional. Resources exchanged for resources. But what Junior Diplomat Morrison and Attaché Velenix have shown us is that true alliance requires deeper connection. It requires individuals willing to bridge the gap between peoples." Cravol's carapace shifted to a warm gold. "Therefore, I am proposing an extended cultural ambassador program. Selected individuals from both species will work together closely, as these two have done, to build understanding and develop protocols for future cooperation. This program will run for one full cycle, approximately one of your years." "And Velenix would be part of this program?" Lisa asked carefully. "She would lead it from our side," Cravel said, "along with Junior Diplomat Morrison leading from yours. If they can continue to demonstrate successful collaboration, it will strengthen our alliance significantly, and it will give Velenix's family time to see the value of what she is building." One of the other Zerathi officials spoke up, his carapace dark with disapproval. "You cannot simply override family arrangements, Elder. Velenix has obligations." "I can postpone them for diplomatic necessity," Craval replied firmly. "Velenix is part of this delegation." Her expertise in cultural exchange has proven valuable. One cycle is not an unreasonable delay for arranged bonding, especially when it serves the greater good of our people. Jake looked at Velenix. Her carapace was cycling through so many colors it was hard to focus on any single one. Joy, fear, hope, anxiety, all swirling together. "There is one condition," Craval continued, looking directly at Jake. "You must travel to our homeworld and meet with Velenix's family. They deserve to understand your intentions and to see for themselves what kind of person you are. This is not negotiable." "I understand," Jake said immediately. "I am willing to do whatever is necessary to prove I am serious about this." "When would this meeting take place?" Lisa asked. "Soon. Within the next few weeks, while the Cultural Ambassador program is being formally established." Craval turned to Velenix. "You should contact your family yourself, young one. Tell them what you have told us. Give them time to prepare for Morrison's visit." The meeting continued for another hour, discussing logistics and structure for the new program, but Jake barely heard most of it. His mind was spinning with the reality of what he had just agreed to. He was going to the Zerathi homeworld to face Velenix's family, and essentially ask permission to court their daughter. After the meeting ended, he and Velenix escaped to the observation deck. It had become their place, the spot where everything had started. "Are you scared?" Velenix asked. "About meeting my family?" "Absolutely terrified," Jake admitted. "What if they hate me? What if I say something wrong and insult them? What if they see me as just some human trying to steal their daughter away from her duties?" "They might see all of those things," Velenix said honestly. "My parents are traditional. They believe in the old ways, but they are also fair. If you speak honestly and show them who you truly are, they will listen." "What about Trevash? The one they want you to bond with?" Velenix's carapace dimmed slightly. "That will be more difficult. His family has been expecting this arrangement for years. Breaking it will cause conflict. But Elder Craval has given us time. We must use it wisely." Over the next 2 weeks, Jake threw himself into learning everything he could about Zerathi culture. Velenix taught him proper greeting rituals, explained family hierarchy systems, and coached him on topics to avoid and topics that would show respect. "When you meet my mother, do not comment on her appearance no matter what," Velenix warned him during one lesson. "What was spontaneous and meaningful between us would be calculated and inappropriate with her. Compliment her gardens instead. She is very proud of the bioluminescent flowers she cultivates. And your father? He will test you. Ask difficult questions to see how you respond under pressure. He was a military strategist before retiring to academic life. He values quick thinking and honesty over polished diplomacy." The day finally came for Jake to depart. A Zerathi ship would take him to their homeworld, a journey of several days even with their faster-than-light technology. Velenix would follow a week later, giving Jake time to meet with her family privately first. Lisa came to see him off at the docking bay. "You know this is completely unprecedented, right? A human traveling to the Zerathi homeworld for personal rather than official reasons?" "I know," Jake said. But someone has to be first. Might as well be me. Good luck, Morrison. And remember, you are representing all of humanity right now. No pressure or anything. Jake laughed nervously. Then he turned to Velenix, who had been standing quietly nearby. Her carapace was a deep blue. The color he had learned meant sadness or worry. I will see you in a week, he said. 1 week, she confirmed. Then, to his surprise, she reached out and took both his hands in hers. It was an intimate gesture among her people, one rarely done in public. Jake Morrison, before you go, I need to hear you say it one more time. He knew what she meant, the words that had started everything between them. You are beautiful, he said softly, looking directly into her multifaceted eyes. Not just your carapace or your colors, your mind is beautiful. The way you see possibilities and differences, the way you question traditions that do not serve kindness, the courage it takes for you to be yourself in a world that wants you to be something else. All of it is beautiful. Her carapace erupted into every color at once, brilliant and overwhelming. Around them, other beings in the docking bay stopped to stare at the display. Among Zarathi, such a reaction was incredibly rare and incredibly meaningful. That is more than I asked for, Velenix said, her voice tight with emotion. You deserve more than you ask for, Jake replied. The boarding announcement came over the speakers. Jake reluctantly let go of her hands and picked up his travel bag. As he walked toward the ship, he turned back one more time. Velenix stood alone in the docking bay, her carapace still shimmering with a rainbow of colors. She raised one hand in the human gesture he had taught her, a simple wave goodbye. Jake waved back, then stepped onto the ship that would take him to an alien world to fight for a relationship that should have been impossible. But as the ship lifted off and he watched the station shrink in the viewport, he felt no doubt. Some things were worth crossing the galaxy for. Some connections were worth fighting to preserve. And sometimes, calling someone beautiful was just the beginning of a much larger story. The stars stretched out ahead, full of uncertainty and possibility. Jake settled into his seat and began reviewing his notes about Zarathi family customs one more time. He had a week to prepare for the most important conversation of his life, and somewhere behind him, still standing in that docking bay, Velenix watched his ship disappear into the vastness of space. Her carapace slowly faded back to her natural blue, but hints of gold remained, like promises written in light. 1 week, she thought. Then we faced the future together,